about 28 minutes time. So hang tight. We will be there to answer all of your questions live. But as I say, comment section below. But yeah, let's start. So Alex, thanks very much for taking the time.
Thank you for allowing me to be part of this.
Great to have you. I'd love to know, obviously, to start about you, about your channel, your journey. Obviously, I came across your channel like years ago, all of your Blackmagic content, all of the sort of helpful tutorials you've done for creators over the years. How did that all come about?
Yeah, so welcome everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Firstly, I'm Alex Pettit. In terms of how it came about and also what I do, I call myself a live stream specialist, specializing in interactive live streaming, but also that's now extended nowadays, everything from studio builds for podcasts to end-to-end productions and consultancy. So I've got quite a wide umbrella of what I do now. But how it started in what feels like many, many moons ago now was actually at university. I was studying a business degree, but on the side, I had a love for media. I've always had a love for media. I always used to create small videos growing up. But at university, there was a radio station, but no television station. There was no real video production. So a group of a couple of us got together, managed to get some funding to actually go out and purchase cameras and vision mixers and things like that. And that's really, for me, where the introduction to like vision switches and broadcast technology came about. So I did that at university. We founded the university television station.
Wow.
And that then got me headhunted by, straight out of university, by a production agency. It was a mixture between like a social media agency and a production house to work on a lot of cool projects. We did the launch of Nick Grimshaw on Radio 1. We did lots around the World Cup. And we actually did one of the world's first, I can't remember exactly what it was classed as, but it was like one of the world's first entertainment shows on YouTube Live. This was 10, maybe 12 years ago now.
So back in the beginning of
Back in the beginning of when YouTube first started doing live streaming.
Amazing.
It was done from London, Shoreditch area. It was called The Fox Problem. It was probably way ahead of its time, both technologically, but also content. We had guests from the Spice Girls to Sir Richard Branson, Commander Chris Hadfield, who was up in space and things like that.
Wow.
And yeah, we were doing that from kind of like you could call it a garage build worth of technology, where my job on that was to make it technically work and bring in all of the tech to be able to go live every week from this little space in Shoreditch in London.
Fantastic. What an epic journey. Sorry, if you don't mind me asking, what
Sure.
university was it?
It was University of Kent in
University
Canterbury.
of Kent. Well
Yeah.
done them.
But-
Giving you the power to go out and build studios and to start that initiative. That's an amazing thing, because I was in a similar place. You know, we had a radio studio available to us at university, but there wasn't the video space. And at the time, we were so in love with the audio side of things, we didn't delve into that realm.
Yeah.
But amazing that opportunity came about for you. That's fantastic to hear.
Yeah, and yeah, as you say, kind of kudos to them, because we kind of approached them with a bit of a plan, but they were really the ones that gave it the green light and was like, yeah, let's give this a go. And you know, I've kept one eye on it since, and it seems to be prospering and continuing to grow, and they're doing a fantastic job.
I can imagine
back
some
there.
real talent coming out of that, given that they get the experience to have the hands-on exposure to a lot of this gear that we're seeing here behind us, I'd imagine, you know, getting that real-life experience, learning the ins and outs of things, and sort of figuring out where it could potentially go wrong so that you know on the day how to fix things and troubleshoot.
It's all about that hands-on experience, and being able to get that early in university sets you up in such good stead to then jump into, whether it be a production house or go and work for a broadcaster or work for YouTubers as well, which is kind of where we are today.
Where we are today. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about the space that we're in right now, and some of these sets. Obviously, we'll show some of these sets later on in this video clip for everyone, so you can see everything that really goes into these spaces. But why don't you tell me a little bit more about how you got involved in this particular project?
Yeah, so from working for this production company, I worked for there for a number of years, and then decided to go out alone, start my own company, specializing, as I say, in live production, consultancy for live production. And I'm very lucky I've been able to work on some fantastic projects with some amazing people. But one of the kind of sectors that I have not fallen into, but really enjoyed working with is YouTubers and the YouTube space. I've worked with broadcasters, I've worked with brands, but the reason I love working with YouTubers is because they are so creative. And very often when you're working with kind of like the legacy brands or the broadcasters, it can take a while to get things over the line. They've got traditional ways of how they want things produced and stuff like that, which is absolutely fine. Love working to that. But with YouTubers, it's kind of like the new media. And they're happy to take a risk, to do something differently from the norm. And also, very often I find with YouTubers as well, is they're completely open to doing things differently, but being super creative with it. And that's kind of like my passion. In my very previous job that I mentioned there, my title was actually a creative technologist.
Right.
And it's all about using technology creatively to be able to then create like content that you haven't seen before, like super creative content. So yeah, with my company and consulting for a number of YouTubers, it kind of came about to this place, which is The Fellas Studios. It was founded by two very prominent YouTubers, Cal Freezy and The Burnt Chip. They both have their own channels, and then decided a number of years ago to get together and create the Fellas podcast. Amazing. Which has gone on from strength to strength. It's grown. I think it's probably in the 5th season now. But they started it on YouTube. It had a period of time where it was exclusive on Spotify. It's now back to being on YouTube full time and is doing phenomenally well. But it was really one of those first podcasts that set the trend of being video first. Mm-hmm. And so you'll see some of the sets behind, and we mentioned we'll show some B-roll as well. It is built to look beautiful on camera and to be video first. As much as audio is important, it's more of a vodcast than a podcast. And that's how I got involved with them. They they started their podcast, but they then quickly realized that this blueprint that they've created works phenomenally well, and they could roll it out to other podcasts and giving other creators within the YouTube space the opportunity to start their own podcasts with the model that they created. And that's how The Fellas Studios as a company started, and how I then started working with them to manage and create all of the technical broadcast infrastructure, all of the workflows for the editors, and anything tech-wise that you see in this building today comes from me, in terms of from planning to acquisition of all the equipment to then actually being here, setting it up, and also maintaining it from a day-to-day.
Amazing. Sounds like you have a very busy schedule.
Yeah,
for one.
Especially as this is one of my clients, and I do the same across others as well.
Amazing. So I suppose let's talk about these spaces behind, and I suppose bringing information to the viewer at home that might just be in their home, in their yes. childhood bedroom, perhaps just starting, where a lot of YouTubers do start their journey. Obviously, the context of what you've built behind us is that it's multi-format. So you can use it for audio-only podcasts. You can use it for live streaming. You can use it to record. I'm sure you could turn these cameras sideways and use it to record shorts.
Absolutely.
You can use it for literally every part of the YouTube ecosystem. And I think that's a really beautiful thing about what you've built for them here. So I suppose to come back to the question I started off with there, went on a little bit of a tangent. What would you say to like the creator that is, maybe in their home, maybe they've said to their parents, can I have the garage to try running YouTube? They've got just a blank wall. What would you say to them in terms of how do you start testing all these things? What's the sort of technology that you should really sort of look at investing in initially, and just sort of testing the waters? Where do you think people should start with that journey?
I think if you're just starting out, it can be a really daunting time on YouTube. You can see all these creators with these massive setups and beautiful sets behind them, like what we've got here. And then they're saying that they're using the highest quality, Sony or Canon or Blackmagic or Red cameras in some instances. If you look at someone like Marques Brownlee, he's using thousands of pounds worth of equipment.
Yes.
And that can be quite daunting when you're starting out, whether it be starting a podcast or just a channel talking about your favorite subject. And I think the important thing is to not get bogged down in that. Use what you've got initially to start, whether it just be, the camera on the back of your phone and the microphone built into that.
Which nowadays, to be perfectly honest, is amazing. I mean, phones have taken such leaps and bounds in the last 10 years that your camera phone is fantastic.
I shoot all of my holiday stuff on my iPhone.
There you go.
It is fantastic. And it's going to be in the early stages, it's going to be the content that you create that gains you views and subscribers,
sure.
not the quality of whether it's shot in 4K or 1080p or things like that. So
sure.
Initially, that's the advice that I would give if you're just starting out. But then naturally, the more you do it, the more you should anyway have the feeling that you want to upscale and up-level the quality of the output, both from a content perspective, because content will always be king, but also from production values as well. And if you're enjoying producing these videos, you'll want to produce higher and higher quality ones, in my personal opinion. So from there, you go, okay, what can I do to change my setup? And it might be as simple as investing in a better microphone. That's usually where I would start. Audio, getting the audio right. Very often when someone tunes into a YouTube video and they watch you for the first time, if the audio is rubbish, they'll move straight on to the another video or another creator. Video can usually be forgiven a bit more than audio. If you've got bad audio, people usually won't stick around for it.
Understood.
So I usually advise people,
look at the
microphones first, that type of thing. Then you can look at upgrading cameras. If you are starting on an iPhone, do you then invest in your first camera, whether it be a small DSLR or upgrading to another camera system? And also, I think the one that people forget is looking at your workflow, because it can also be very time-consuming. This business as it is for some, of creating videos sometimes on a daily basis. And one real easy win is looking at your holistic workflow and saying, how can I make my life easier throughout the workflow? And it might be that you're able to invest in a piece of equipment, and I'll talk about a bit of the workflows here as well, that can save you a ton of time. Just to give the podcast example, before cheaper vision switchers came on the market, a lot of the way that podcasts were done is you'd have 3 or 4 cameras, and you'd be recording individually on the SD card of all the cameras. You would record, let's say, a 2-hour podcast that you as a producer has sat down, or you as a talent have sat down and created. And then you've got to go back and take those 2 hours worth of footage and sit through it again for another 3 or 4 hours and edit it. So that's, let's say, 5 hours in total. Now the way that a lot of podcasts are made is actually they're effectively edited live. They're live vision mix. And that's exactly what we built here, where as the podcast is being recorded, all the cameras are feeding into a vision switcher, and there's someone here cutting between the cameras, so that as soon as you hit stop recording, that episode is actually ready to be uploaded straight away. And so you get quicker turnaround times, you're able to be much more reactive with the content, and suddenly you've gone from a 2-hour recording and a 5-hour edit to just a 2-hour recording and posting on YouTube.
But also at the same time, you could be live streaming that, which from these spaces and everything that you built here, everything can be streamed. All of these can go live at the push of a button, and then you don't even need to worry about the upload. You are live immediately, you're engaging with your fans on YouTube, you're taking questions from them, potentially even interacting with them and bringing them into the set somehow, in some kind of future version of this, who knows?
As part of what Fellas Studios do, they produce a number of podcasts, but a lot of those podcasts also have live stream elements to them. The two that come to mind straight away are the two football or soccer, if you're watching in the US, focused shows, which are Pitchside and The Club. They go live doing watch-along content for Premier League games, for major tournaments, and they use the exact same setup, which is predominantly a Blackmagic-based setup. In these studios, we use all Blackmagic cameras, we use Blackmagic ATEMs, and I know we'll go into a bit more detail about what's in the rack in a second. But they enable us to go live at the touch of a button. And it's so simple for the producer. The way that I've tried to design the workflows and the architecture is that really everything should be kind of a 1 or 2 button press to get them going, but also 2, try and take as much stuff off of their plate so they can just be a producer and worry about the content and not have to worry about the technology.
Makes sense, yeah, because especially, as you say, in those moments, you don't want to have to worry about any of the technology. You want to know what every single button on that Stream Deck does so that you can add a switch. All of a sudden you're changing from this set to that set, you can hot swap and away you go, you're producing the next show. The technology sort of falls away into the background and makes things so effortless and easy for you to use, which I think is a beautiful thing about what you've designed here. And yeah, on that, we'll come to sort of having a look around and talking about the technology. I suppose let's maybe start with what you've implemented here in these spaces. So as you said, so they're all Blackmagic cameras, and as you can see here, so you've got a mixture of the sort of micro four thirds with the lens mounted, fixed focal lengths, and then you've got these other ones, which I'm assuming can all be controlled via the ATEM. Is that right?
Yeah. So we've got kind of the setup for all of the podcast sets here is within this space. There's 3 stories. The top story we can kind of ignore, it's just office space. But the 2 bottom stories within this build are separated into different studio spaces. And then within each studio space, there's actually multiple sets, different podcasts within each space. The one we're sitting in right now has 3 different sets. The one next door has 6 different sets. So we try and, we try and maximize square footage per room and fit as many sets in as possible. Within each one of those studios, let's say it does have 6 sets in, there's one producer desk which can manage everything in that room. And that producer desk, we've tried to, again, simplify that as much as possible. So the only thing that should really be on that desk is a keyboard, a mouse, and a Stream Deck.
Perfect.
And everything can be run from the Stream Deck. And that's everything from cutting between cameras, enabling muting and unmuting microphones and controlling the audio mixer, to lighting scenes so that we can turn on different sets lights, different lighting profiles. There are some shows here that have, like a kind of disco mode when something happens in the show and stuff like that.
Is that something that people can interact with through a live stream just yet? I know there's certain interactivity features whereby if someone sends a super chat, then lighting states can change. And I've seen certain use cases where people have put like fog machines on an electric switch, and a super chat comes in that turns the fog machine on for 10 seconds. By the end of the stream, you can't see the presenters anymore. They are covered in smoke.
We've got all the ability to do that, to fully integrate with however we want, whether it be the chat. One good example of this, Fellas Studios used to have a Formula One watch along, and we actually integrated that. We were the only, and I believe still the only kind of external asset from Formula One that had the ability to integrate with live data from the track.
So I think I watched that YouTube video on your channel. And I think that was one of the things I mentioned to you when I met you at MPTS in London, all the what is it, like 3 years ago now?
Quite a while,
but no, sorry, keep saying about
so the way that worked is we had live data from the track. So we had everything from the car's position, all of the car's positions, to how many pit stops they've done, things like that. But we actually used the track conditions. So whether it was a green flag, yellow flag, red flag, and we then translated the lighting. So the set lighting, which if a yellow flag came out, would actually flash and pulse yellow. As soon as green flag came back on, it would turn back to green. And that just enabled, it's enabling something additional, and it was really a great visual cue for when these moments happened in the race. But you mentioned about interacting with the audience, right? This is LiveCom. It's all about the live interaction with the audience. We want what we're producing when we're producing a live show, we want it to be two-way. With YouTube, you don't want to be traditional broadcaster, linear, just broadcasting something out. It's all about the two-way interaction, the bi-directional conversation you're having with the audience. So 100%. We've got, for pitch side and for the club, for the fellas, as part of what I do with Alex.live, my company, we have tools and workflows that allow, for example, to pull in the live chat from YouTube, or in fact, any social network that you're streaming on. We're able to pull that data in from the platforms into a dashboard, a moderation dashboard, for whether it be a producer or an on-screen talent on an iPad. They get all the chat in real time. They can click on a chat message and then send it to their graphics engine so that the chat is actually displayed in their graphic style.
Wow.
It tells you where it's coming from. So if a chat's coming from YouTube, we stick the little YouTube logo. And it tells you if it's a super chat. And we're able to then really play it. We can display it on screen so that the talent can then talk about it. And it's a real easy way of including interaction in the show. Same with polls. We'll have graphic elements for when we're running a poll on YouTube. We're able to actually grab the result of the poll from YouTube and stick it into our own branded graphics on the stream. And other things like that to really elevate the live stream from being just a broadcast of content to actually more of a two-way conversation with the viewers.
Amazing. And that's, I think that's the beautiful thing about live streaming. And I think that's what every creator that uses these spaces is really going to resonate with, is the fact that you can easily interact with that audience that you started building up when you were maybe in your garage and you were filming these videos using your phone, using a very basic setup. And from there, they followed you with that journey. And now they're here watching you, being able to interact with you with ease in your new set. And I think that's a beautiful thing about YouTube, really.
Yeah, and I've been on that exact journey. I'd started my YouTube channel many years ago, but just uploading sort of just own personal videos, not expecting them to get any views. But where I really started my content, which is content to help people in the live streaming world, talking about the broadcast tech and tips and tricks for what to do if you're looking to start live streaming or podcasting. I started that during COVID, but when I started it, I kind of talk a little bit about starting with an iPhone and things like that. I started it with bare basics against a white wall in my kitchen and starting videos like that, sort of showing some products that I had and starting reviewing them in that way and giving tips and tricks. And then just added on to that to the point where now I'm using cinema grade cameras, microphones. I've improved my lighting setup a lot because lighting is key.
I mean, these lights behind are absolutely amazing. All of them have got the sort of honeycomb filter on to sort of give it you nice, dispersed light.
Diffused lighting.
Diffused light, thank you. I mean, all of these sets look at absolutely amazing.
There is a blueprint to what we do when we are designing a new set and looking to implement the tech around it. We've definitely now, after building, I think in this space, 15 or so sets, we have a blueprint that we follow. But each one has its own quirks. The most recent one, lighting-wise, we actually decided, along with a partner of mine, Ian, who does a lot of the lighting, decided to individually light each talent with their own like hair light, backlight, key light, and things like that.
Amazing.
Because it then allows us to, that particular show has a bit more of a game show element. So we can actually knock off in the dark the other three contestants and, do some cool stuff like that. And you mentioned when we were down there, you saw a Elgato foot pedal. And that's what that does. There's a producer, an on-screen producer, that's able to actually control the lighting as they're recording with their foot, with his foot.
Something happens, they can just kill it in the moment, boom, lights are off.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And so that's kind of where I talk about using technology creatively to solve a problem. The producer still wanted where he produces other shows, but behind the desk, he's an on-screen producer here. He's part of the content, but still wanted to be able to manage some of what goes on production-wise. And so we used a foot pedal to be able to give him different actions that he could then do with his feet, whether it be changing the lightings, whether it be actually there's a cool element on there where he has the final say and can, with his foot, mute all of the others' microphones. And little bits like that to use technology creatively.
Amazing. Well, speaking of technology, let's move into that. Let's talk about what we have in the racks. Let's move some of these cameras. We've been talking for like 20 minutes.
Super.
Let's talk about some of the technology that we see behind us, and let's move you guys over this way. Come with us. While I'm talking straight to the camera, don't forget, ask questions down below, and we will come live in about, I would say, about 10 minutes time. So ask questions. Right, let's move over here and let's have a look at some of these racks. Would you like to just follow with the camera, and we can just keep it as one continuous shot potentially?
Okay, let's do it.
Let's see.
Let's
Move these chairs out the way, and there we go. Are you all right being handheld? Yeah, magic.
Super.
So let's. Let's walk into the lighting rig. Let's talk about the actual desk that you've got here. Now, what controls all this? What are we seeing? Obviously, party poppers on the desk, I'd imagine, for quite happy celebrations when something good happens. Super chats, I'm hoping. So talk to us about the technology here that's behind this desk, and as we can see here, like big Stream Deck to control what I'm assuming is the brains that you're stood in front of.
Absolutely. Every room, so there's 4 main studios. Every room has a very similar layout. One producer desk controls everything in the room. And really, there's the desk where the producer sits, and then the brains, which is actually the rack that you see behind it, houses most of that technology. So most of what actually makes the stuff work is in here, but we then just have a single Stream Deck control surface for the producer who is sat here on their own, operating the show, to just only have to really worry about this. So in terms of what you've got here, simple setup. I mentioned before we try and make it as clean as possible, although there's obviously been a party recently. We have a Mac Mini that runs everything, all the software. So as I mentioned, we have Blackmagic software, so that's running things like the ATEM software control. It's running our lighting software to be able to control all the lighting scenes. It's running our audio software. Everything software-wise is running on a Mac Mini. That's all connected to our 10 gigabit network in every room as well, so we can transfer files very quickly, back up files to a NAS, a central storage system, very quickly as well. And then the other monitor that you see here is actually the output of the ATEM multi-view. And essentially what that is showing us is all the cameras that we have plugged in. In this particular set, it's a 4-camera setup. All the cameras will show on here. And then the producer can be sat at this desk, cutting between the cameras. So if I just cut between here, you'll see they can use the Stream Deck, which is their main control surface, to cut around the different cameras based on who is talking. And if I kind of go to a bit more of a complex scene on here, so Fellas podcast, you'll see some podcasts have a lot more buttons and a lot more things that can and can't be turned on and changed than others. So we have camera cutting usually as the bottom row, muting microphones usually the one up from that. In this case, there's multiple microphones on this show. There's 5 mics for talent. Every desk also has a producer mic. Some of the shows require the producer to actually be on screen, either talking or physically on screen. So you'll see, you mentioned a little micro camera here. We actually have a very small Blackmagic Micro Studio Camera 4K G2, which is a micro four thirds camera. These are fantastic. They've got all the same sensor, quality, 4K capabilities as the studio cameras.
Which is these ones, just here. So
they are identical apart from form factor.
Form factor,
Yeah.
and I mean, yeah, so, wow. Yeah, it's just breathtaking how you can fit what is essentially all of this into something so small. I mean, obviously, the screen takes up a huge part of it.
Yep.
There seems to be like a lot of control knobs on here, which I'd imagine control a lot of the sort of input for the lens and the
Exactly,
actual camera you see. But with these, you can control it all through the ATEM Mini.
Everything for both cameras can be all controlled via the software, and that's one of the beauties, is that once the producer is sat here, they shouldn't need to get up to adjust anything like focus. That can all be done from the software. Everything they need should be either on the Stream Deck or in the software sat at this desk. But yeah, in terms of the cameras, the quality we get out of the Blackmagic cameras is fantastic. They are cinema-grade cameras. And we're also able to do, because it's got all the color correction and everything built in, we're able to do full shading and really create a cinema-looking quality product out of those. And all the cameras are fed in, or all the inputs, whether they be cameras, laptops, or anything like that, are fed in to an ATEM Mini or an ATEM SDI Extreme ISO. Everything is SDI based in this studio. So from the output of all the cameras to laptops and stuff like that, we convert it all to SDI. And that is where this rack comes in.
I'm just going to move around and have a look at the back of this rack.
And we'll get some B-roll shots afterwards as
Yeah.
well, so you guys at home can see it all in detail. But effectively what we have in here is an ATEM SDI that gives us 8 inputs.
And that's what these purple here
Yeah,
are feeding over to your cameras that can be positioned in multiple different locations.
Exactly. So
Fantastic.
anytime you see purple cables, they are SDI cables running to cameras or other outputs. We've got TVs on set as well, so that the talent can either see the output that's being recorded,
Yep.
or sometimes we'll send them something like a laptop output so they can watch and react to stuff.
Amazing.
When we're live, this is a
Yep.
prime example. On the screen, we'll be showing super chats on those screens. We'll be, we might have a remote caller coming in as well.
Amazing.
So we'll be putting those. We've got full flexibility about what we send to any of those screens. So that's all routed through the ATEM itself. We've got 4 outputs on the ATEM, so we can send different outputs to different locations.
Yep.
Effectively, when we're streaming, the ATEM does have the ability to stream directly from it. It's got a built-in encoder.
Yep.
Because we do a lot with graphic overlays and things like that, we also have the ability to take an output from the ATEM and feed it into the Mac Mini and use third-party software to stream, whether it be OBS or other software and things like that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, there's quite a few choices for
Yeah,
that
and
encoding software.
If you're Windows-based, vMix is another one I know
Of course,
loads of
yeah.
people like to use. So there's plenty of encoding like software available.
Yes.
But the ATEM gives you the ability as well to stream directly from it, 'cause it's got built-in.
It's like the Swiss Army knife.
It is.
It can handle everything, and especially when you buy into that Blackmagic ecosystem, it just certainly sounds like you can do quite a lot using the infrastructure that they provide you.
This is it. The Blackmagic kit works best when, as you say, you are buying into the Blackmagic ecosystem. So if you decide to go down that route and have Blackmagic cameras, you get, with an ATEM, you get so much benefit from that, where you get not just the ability to send the audio and video from the camera back to the switcher and do your switching, but it creates a two-way connection to the camera. So then the vision switcher, the ATEM, can actually send a bunch of ancillary data back to the camera in the form of time codes so that everything can be synced and re-edited and post easily, to also what we use on Live Every Day, tally lights. So the talent get a big red light.
So you can see, we can see here, camera 2 is actually selected. If we pan around, you can see here tally light on top of this camera.
And
nice little indicator that this is the one that is currently being that is live.
And then if I switch that to number 1, you'll see
number
that
1,
goes
we've
live.
got the close-up over here, so for solos, for people.
And that's really useful for the talent, because they know where to look. They're able to talk into camera. There's many times where they're actually kind of addressing camera, and they know exactly what camera to address to. And as I mentioned before, that two-way connection that staying in the Blackmagic ecosystem creates also enables you to take advantage of things like the color correction, the camera, the remote camera settings. You can change all the settings remotely from the software, and it pushes those over the SDI to the cameras.
Amazing.
So yeah, that Blackmagic ecosystem has been fantastic, and it is the amount of time it's cut out from creating a podcast or creating a live stream is phenomenal. We literally plug a hard drive in, hit record, hit stop, and then the editors upstairs, really, they just take that, top and tail it, add in any ads or graphic elements that are needed, and then upload for a podcast.
Makes their lives a lot easier and more streamlined for sort of turning around some of these things that I'd imagine in a space like this where you've got 3 studios, if you've got back-to-backs for filming, editors can quickly turn around stuff for people. They can get the timeline, sync them up. Oh, there was a funny clip here. Let's chop and tail that for shorts. Let's put this as an individual VOD on YouTube. Let's do this, do that. So yeah, it gives you all the capabilities.
Yeah, and you hit on a real key point there in that often I think people think creating a podcast is a fact of creating one piece of content. But actually what's being done here is you're filming a podcast, it might be 2 hours long, and if you think of that podcast as the fruit and orange, you've then got to say, well, how can I squeeze as much juice out of that orange as possible to really make it worthwhile? So out of a 2-hour podcast, you might then clip out 10 shorts. You might then clip out 5 different videos which are of about 8 minutes long and go up to a clips channel or something like that. There then might be other clips that go on different social networks as continual marketing and promotion that lead back to the main podcast. So you're trying to extract as much content out of that one single recording as possible.
Of course.
And that's one of the beautiful things that the ATEM ISO allows you to do. So we're using the ATEM SDI Extreme ISO. Everything is recording. All of the individual camera recordings are all recording into that device onto a single SSD.
Amazing.
And then the process here is they'll plug the SSD into the Mac and transfer it onto a larger network attached storage, so that as soon as that's done, anyone in the building or remotely can access that footage straight away. And it takes for about a 300 gigabyte recording, let's say, which is usually about a 2-hour podcast recording. They're able to transfer that onto the server within 5 minutes or so because we've got a 10 gigabit network running here.
Wow.
So yeah, we've really nailed down the workflows to make it as quick and efficient as possible for the team.
I mean, this is an incredibly efficient setup. It is very well thought out. I honestly love everything that you've done here and built within these studios. I think it's fantastic what you've done. I love the rack. I love the fact that it's so simple in its execution that one person can operate this one, that one, that one, and it just makes everyone's lives so much easier. And I think that's really what, you've done a beautiful job of building these fantastic studios for people to come and use.
Yeah, and that's exactly, you hit the nail on the head there. We have people the fellows have people that maybe join the company that haven't worked in a studio space before, are familiar with some cameras, but might not be familiar with Blackmagic systems. So my job really is to make whatever we create for the fellas as simple and as one push of a button press, easy to use, and also so that it's generic across all of the different spaces in this building.
Sure.
So that one day they might be working on the fellas podcast, but the next they might be working 2 rooms down or doing a live stream on the club, and it doesn't feel dissimilar. Like the setup is the same. So yeah, like that's why here literally we have a button for everything.
Yeah, so if we wanted to turn on, we're going from this set to the set that is here behind Charles. And let me just turn this camera around. So we'll get Charles in as it lights up.
So we effectively just have buttons for each different set on the Stream Deck. They choose the one they want, and then they can just hit lights on and turn everything on for it. And within a few seconds, oh no, I'm on let me press the right one, press lights on. Within a few seconds, everything switches over.
Wow.
And they are now ready to record there. They just turn the cameras around, point the cameras in the right place, and hit record.
Amazing. What a fantastic way for people to work. Honestly, this is absolutely incredible. And on that, I suppose, just looking at the time, we've been running for about 40 minutes. Why don't we do, if it's all right, just do like a quick show and tell of just the other room so people can see, how you fit all of these amazing studios into this venue. And then we'll go live to Q&A with you folks at home or wherever you're watching us from. We're coming live to you in about 5 seconds, so thanks very much for your time here today.
Absolutely.
And yeah, let's go live. Hi everyone, and welcome to this LiveCon session. I'm here joined by Alex, and we're going to chat through...
The VT is playing back. Let's cut back. There we go. We are live. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in with us on day 2 of LiveCon. As mentioned, we are here live now to answer all of your amazing questions. We have a variety of them that have come through, so Alex and I are going to start working our way through all of those. But just to reiterate, if you'd like to ask Alex a question, he's here, he's live. Let's talk about it. Use the Q&A feature below to send through those questions. So, Alex, thanks again for joining. Thanks for joining live. And thanks ever so much for that time last week where we filmed that interview. Let's start with some of the questions that have been coming through.
Absolutely.
So we've got a wide variety, all from making industry contacts to the gear that you're using. There's even one on why there was loo roll on the desk in the studio, which I think we're just going to chalk up to the fact that last week it was freezing in London. The temperature change went from like 13 degrees Celsius to 0 from one day to the next. And yeah, that's just a bit much. It's the time of year where everyone gets a cold.
It's hit the stuff.
Loo roll's just the quickest thing they could grab.
Exactly.
So let's get that question out of the way. Let's move on to the next one. So question here, there's no name attached, but I'll find that out in a moment. How do you work with and find points of contacts for these platforms? I would assume these platforms being YouTube. You started working with YouTube on this in the early days where access was limited. Are there any tips you can find on the right POCs for internally at these companies? I suppose from my side, just to give awareness, so people in the Live Solutions team, we're always happy to chat with people, and we attend most road shows or like tech events that are available. So for example, that Alex and I met actually at MPTS in London 3 years ago, and I started watching his content probably just the start of COVID. So I'd known of him for years, and I just bumped into him casually, and then from there we've been chatting since. But Alex, I mean, how do you make your way into the conversations with companies like YouTube?
Yeah, from just my personal YouTube side, I would say it follows. I was obviously posting for a while throughout COVID. The videos were gaining traction, and then I've heard this story from a number of creators. There kind of comes a point where someone from YouTube inevitably does just reach out and say, "Hey, would you want a partner manager?" And then suddenly you've got that point of contact where you can start asking questions. So if you're a sole creator, that's definitely the path that I've heard from other sole creators. There comes a point where you are noticed and you are reached out to. Then moving away from like a sole creator to working with other brands and broadcasters and things like that. Very often I've found where I brought in to manage a live production or work with a team on that, the point of contacts actually come from the brand or the broadcaster side, because they've obviously built up contacts themselves, whether it be through using ads on the platform, and they've got a contact at YouTube that then they're able to make or introductions with people like yourselves if we're doing live, or other members of YouTube for other requirements. So I've kind of had it both ways, both as a sole creator and obviously working with large brands and broadcasters around the world as well.
Amazing. Amazing. Hope that answers and clears up that for you. Obviously, yeah, I think just from a general standpoint, people at YouTube are happy to chat. Naturally, we can't talk to everyone, but if you do find a way into the conversations with us, more than happy to talk about anything and everything when it comes to YouTube. Let's move on to the next question, because I realize we've got 20 minutes to whistle through these, and there's quite a few that have come through.
Cool.
So the next one is, would you recommend going for the cheapest setup possible when first setting up a studio, or somewhere in the middle where I wouldn't have to upgrade immediately? For example, has a Canon T2 Ti, works fine, but I feel like he's being held back since it's not a video specific camera. I think we kind of alluded to this in the conversation, that you should obviously start with what you have available to yourself, and then slowly take baby steps into upgrading gear, upgrading lighting, looking at your studio. But Alex, is there anything else you want to add on that?
Yeah, I guess I would say, where is it? I'd first ask, like, where is it holding you back? If it's literally just holding you back on, you're looking at the picture going, it's not as high quality as some of the stuff I see from a how it looks perspective, then that's up to you on, do you have the budget to upgrade and things like that. But if you said to me, actually, it's holding me back on the type of content that I want to create, or the different sort of content genres in a way, or anything like that, then I think there's more of an argument of, yes, if it's going to enable you to level up your content, not just from a production value, but actually level it up from a physical, content perspective, then you've got more of an argument to go out there and put a budget together to increase your kit and kind of unlock these different content potentials that this new and better kit provides. So that's what I would say. If it's just a case of you want it to look slightly cleaner, that's a decision that you have to make, whether there's spare kind of cash there to do it.
Perfect. Thanks very much for that. But I think one thing, just to make sure that there's no barrier to entry on this, most people nowadays have an amazing smartphone. Start there. Use that. Phones are a fantastic way to capture the moment, to go live in the moment. All of these things can be done through your phone. You can plug in very simple microphones, and I had them to hand. They were the ones we were using in the interview. They have an adapter for USB-C smartphones and for iPhones. So it's a really easy way to get crystal clear audio. Alex?
I would add on that now. Ironically, what we're seeing now is more traditional broadcasters, especially within journalism and news, using iPhones and using some of those third-party add-ons that you mentioned, something like the Rode microphones can plug into there. They then kind of kit out their mobile journalism kits based on a phone camera, but with additional extras of microphones, lights. And there's some fantastic apps out there for streaming as well. Obviously, YouTube, you can stream directly inside of the YouTube app, but also there's third-party apps which allow you to push out RTMP feeds to YouTube, or even SRT feeds to YouTube as well. I think YouTube approves Larynx Broadcaster as an example for pushing out. And obviously, when you use those, you get more granular controls of bit rates and resolutions and things like that. So yeah, starting with your phone, especially with how good the cameras and even the processors in them are now, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
There we go. Let's move into the next question here from Matthew F. I think this is relating to the session yesterday, but it's something we wanted to talk about, obviously, here and now. So it is it possible to allow my viewers to watch both horizontal and vertical live stream on YouTube, dual stream using an encoder at the same time in a single video playback? I notice I get a lot more vertical views who enjoy my stream and do not realize I have a horizontal live stream going as well, which they usually enjoy more. I think just to drive awareness from a YouTube perspective, currently the platform is that it will be two completely independent events. The chat will be independent. There are chat tools outside of this, and I'd have to remember the names for third parties, the way you can use to combine chat so you have one feed. But overall, it will be one vertical feed and one horizontal feed. What we do see people using in the vertical feed is that they will pin a message to the top of the live chat. So if people are watching a mobile, that will surface there for them at all times, that redirects people to the horizontal stream. But I think, Alex, you had an interesting use case from the creators that you work with in this studio space around vertical streaming.
Yeah, so obviously we filmed this in Fellas Studios. One of their podcasts and live streams is the Club, which is a football watch along or soccer watch along for the Premier League. And during the Euros, that's when we actually tested dual streaming on YouTube for both 16:9 landscape, but now also as well live streaming for vertical as well, 9:16. And I think in the session yesterday you mentioned the ATEM or I never know how to pronounce it. Is it ATEM plugin for OBS?
ATEM.
ATEM, there we go.
At least that's how I say it, and I've been saying that to ATEM when I have conversations with them. So I hope
I get
I'm
mixed up between ATEM and ATEM. But yeah, it's the plugin for OBS that gives you two canvases, one landscape, one vertical, and we use that really effectively. But as you say, it appears as two completely different events on YouTube. And in the beginning, we were titling the streams the same, and then that did cause a little bit of confusion between when people jumped on to the vertical as to why the stream had suddenly gone vertical and not horizontal. So some of the tips that I can give is we ended up being able to differentiate for the viewer the difference between the streams by actually just putting a small phone emoji at the start of the title, something so that if they knew they saw that phone emoji at the start of the title, it was completely the same title as the horizontal one, but they knew if there's a phone at the beginning of it, it's going to be a vertical stream. If there wasn't, then it was going to be a horizontal stream. We did the same as you just recommended, Callum, of pinning a comment at in the vertical chat to say, if you want to watch the horizontal version, just click here, it will take you over. And we also then implemented a chatbot for the vertical stream as well. So every 10 to 15 minutes or so, it would also post in a link to the vertical chat, just reminding people that you're seeing the vertical version. If you want to go and watch the horizontal version, you can do so easily here. And after we implemented those few things, people got used to it. We started seeing a lot less comments in the vertical chat of what's happened, why have I got a vertical stream, because they realized that actually both were going on at the same time. But there's definitely benefits to dual streaming. We saw we would really get much discovery from the vertical. We would enter a whole new market of viewers that we weren't necessarily hitting with the horizontal stream, and also the subscriber rates of the vertical stream were higher than the horizontal very often as well. So dual streaming has been very beneficial for the club.
Amazing. That's really, really great to hear. And obviously, as I kind of alluded to in the session yesterday where we started talking about this, we'd love for people to just try it. Try running dual streams. Try getting that different layer of discoverability for your vertical content streams. Let's move on. Conscious, we've got 13 minutes. Let's go through. So we've got a couple quick fire questions, and then there's some chunkier ones, which I think will be some really interesting answers from. So Alex, just quick fire. What's your favorite piece of gear in a studio? Anything top of mind come to?
It probably does have to be an A10 Mini, and there's different flavors of them, but they're just so powerful, and really the workflow you can get with them are fantastic.
Fair enough. And I think the next one, I already know the answer to this, but what is the one piece of gear that improves productivity and reduces cost the most?
I would say the Elgato Stream Deck paired with a piece of software, free software called BitFocus Companion. If you're working with any sort of broadcast hardware or really any hardware at all, this allows you to, instead of using the Elgato software, it uses this third-party piece of software, and you can control all of those devices from ATEMs to lighting to audio mixing desks, all from a Stream Deck. And that piece of equipment that's only a couple of £100, a couple of $100 in the UK has probably meant in a number of different scenarios that we've been gone from getting 5 or 6 crew in the gallery to 2 or 3, or sometimes even one person in the gallery, because it allows us to do so much just from one surface.
Amazing. And I think leading nicely into this, we've got a question here from Ben that says, what studio lighting are you using and how are you controlling it with a Stream Deck? Maybe you could just elaborate a little bit more on the connection between the lights and the Stream Deck.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of the lighting that you saw in that video, we tend to use Aputure lights, and they're all DMX capable, all DMX'd up. The important bit in terms of how we control it with a Stream Deck comes down to a few different things. Instead of having a physical traditional lighting desk, we actually we use a DMX node instead. So effectively what that is it's connected up to our network and then spits out DMX commands to the lights on the other side. And so that means we can then run a piece of software called Luminaire. I believe the most recent version is Luminaire 4. And that allows us to control all of the lights from that piece of software running on either an Apple M1 Mac or an iPad. And we get full, as if it was a desk, we've got full lighting control, can set presets and everything like that. The benefit of it being is because the lights are effectively on the network, we're not tied to a lighting desk. I can remotely control the lights from at home. And very often, I'll be working from home and someone will say, I need some changes to the lights, or can you make me a new preset? And I can just remote in and do all that because everything is on the network. So it's great. And that app is fantastic as well.
Amazing. So yeah, that sounds like an amazing workflow. Obviously, you can just be sat at home and change lights on the go where you go. That's perfect.
Sorry, just to mention, to finish off there, the actual answer of how we control it with the Stream Deck is that Luminaire, you can, it accepts OSC commands. So from BitFocus Companion running on the Stream Deck, we send OSC commands to Luminaire, and that's how we have physical buttons to enable or disable presets in Luminaire.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so we've got a few more questions. We've got 10 minutes left. I think this next one is going to be an interesting one just to hear your thoughts and opinion on. So we have this question, and again, there's no name with this one that I can see, but I'll find that out in a moment. So it is, when I walk into a modern production truck, I see a lot of excess and unnecessary gear. You run your studio from a producer's desk with a Stream Deck. Do you have a sense for whether large productions are rethinking their workflows, or are they still largely leaning into old practices? I mean, I'll let you take it to start, Alex. I've definitely got some thoughts of my own on that, around sort of redundancy when people say it's unnecessary gear. But Alex, how do you feel about this question? What do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to say that anything in a TV truck is unnecessary gear as such. And we're definitely looking at different times in terms of what a YouTube studio does versus what a massive NEP truck will do, and the audiences they're hitting and things like that. In terms of the question of I think not just COVID was a big thing in terms of our people rethinking the way that they do things. That was a massive cause of causing people to take productions remotely, not just again from a smaller scale perspective of like a YouTuber or a YouTube production house, but also from broadcasters. The one that comes to mind is Formula F1 TV and their productions. Everything now is done remotely, whereas they used to spend millions and millions of pounds of shipping broadcast trucks around and having, as you say, so much redundancy at every single track. Every single camera feed, microphone feed, everything is now beamed back to Biggin Hill, and the whole show and multiple shows at the same time are all produced remotely. So there's definitely shifting times. What I would say is it's a lot easier for a sole content creator or a production house to shift with the times than it is for a massive global broadcaster and organization. If you think of all the red tape that they have to jump through and all the planning, everything that goes into, as an example, like broadcasters shifting from HD to 4K took really probably decades, while a YouTuber can just go out and buy a different camera and a capture card and live stream and make that switch from HD to 4K. And then, as you were saying about redundancies, what we have in the studio, it's designed to work, and like the A10 Mini, its sole purpose is to be a switcher, and it's got an encoder built in. So it's resilient, is what I would call. But in a traditional broadcast environment, you're going to have something that has one single purpose, and that it just does that job. And then you're going to have 3 to 4 of those as well, because you want the redundancy in case it breaks. And so I wouldn't say it's wasted gear in a production truck at all. It's there serving its purpose, and then there's multiple redundancies. But what we have in the studio, just on the final point, is it has to be super flexible. So very often we're filming one thing on one day and then completely changing it up for another day. So the kit has to be flexible in that it can't be specifically just for one purpose. We need to be able to do multiple stuff on it. The Mac Mini is a prime example on there. We have 4 or 5 different things running on there, 4 or 5 different pieces of software. It does a varying number of different jobs.
Amazing. I don't think I can add anything else to that answer. You hit all the nails on the head there, and covered that in its entirety. That's amazing. And I love how you mentioned, the studios you built, they are flexible. I love the fact that when we were in that space, you could, at the push of a few buttons, you could obviously change lighting scenes, go between multiple sets in the same room, have an operator control so many things at once from the push of very simple buttons at the end of their fingertips. And then you just shift the cameras around, shift and shuffle, add those together. Shiffle. I'm making up words today. You could just move the cameras around, and then obviously you're ready to go on a whole new set. I think we've probably got time for one last question. And I'm just looking at this one here, which is, what's the best way to feed the live chat messages to a presenter? How would you show them the live chat feed itself, or feed the live chat messages to see and comment on? I think in your studio, and from what we saw in the video feed there, you've obviously got these confidence monitors right in front of the talent.
Yeah.
Maybe could you just elaborate on how you display questions to them there?
Yeah, absolutely. As part of my company, Alex.live, we actually developed a workflow as well, specifically for comments, mainly because a lot of the brands that we were working with, they really wanted to make their live streams interactive, but they did also have a fear of what happens if during the live stream you get trolls in the comments. And so they didn't just want to show them the raw output from YouTube, that this is the talent. They didn't want to just show the talent the raw output from the YouTube chat, in case some comments kind of went askew and then it puts the presenters off. So we actually developed a workflow which enables us to pull live chat from YouTube chat, from the YouTube API, as well as a number of different other social platforms, into a moderation dashboard. And from there, we can have a producer moderating that chat, queuing up different chat messages as well. And then from that dashboard, what they're actually able to do is do two things. One, they can click on a chat message, and that will send it to the graphics engine and enable it to be displayed as a chat message on screen in full branded assets, so it looks the part. And the second thing it does, which links back to your question, is it automatically sends that same chat message that has been queued up to either a confidence monitor or a iPad. It's just effectively a 1080p browser source that can run on a smart TV or an iPad or anything like that. And so that way, the talent, the presenter, isn't getting distracted by a continually scrolling feed. They're not getting distracted by any troll comments or anything like that. They're only seeing the comment that they need at that time. And so we found that to be massively beneficial. And yeah, that's a system and a workflow that we've developed in-house and works really well.
Amazing. And this is something you build into the studios that you implement. It's not something that's a ready available app for people to go and use to, connect all of their social accounts to. Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not something that we sell sort of off the shelf, but any clients that we work with, we always offer it as an additional tool, because it has been massively useful. And a number of the live shows that we saw in the video, they all use that tool, especially around super chats as well. Because one of the key thing with YouTube is if someone's effectively paying money, you don't want to miss their chat. So and you want to be interactive with them. So we also use that same system to really flag super chats to the talent as well, so that people who do donate are getting their acknowledgement and their questions answered.
Amazing. Well, unfortunately, we are coming to time now on this session, and just to keep us to time and running smoothly with the rest of the day, I'm going to say thanks very much to Alex for his time, for joining us live. There are a few more questions in the moderation field here. So we've got a few from Garo and some from Ben, one from Joseph. We're going to come back to you in the actual comments thread for your question itself, and we'll reply to you there, just so that we can move into the next session and talk next about SRT with me. We'll be back in a few moments' time, but thank you again, Alex. Really appreciate you taking the time today and chatting with everyone here at LiveCon. We hope you've enjoyed the session, and I will be back in about 2 to 3 minutes' time to update everyone on SRT and what's going on at YouTube. Thanks again.
This is the LiveView Solo Pro, the heart of the